Welcome to this explainer. Look, we are literally in the middle of a massive paradigm shift right now. Today, we're going to dive into the absolute shocking reality of how commercial, off-the-shelf hobbyist tech has just completely stalled out modern military doctrine. It's a fascinating and honestly, a pretty sobering story about how warfare is being rewritten right before our very eyes.
Just wrap your head around this staggering statistic. First-person view drones, or FPVs, now account for a massive 65% of all Russian tank losses in Ukraine. 65%. That means more than half of the armor being destroyed out there isn't falling victim to some multi-million-dollar missile system. No, it's being taken out by modified consumer technology.
And the human toll of this shift? It's historically unprecedented. Recent data from CSIS estimates 1.4 million Russian casualties, and that includes 450,000 fatalities since February 2022. To put that into perspective, that number is actually more than 9 times greater than all Soviet and Russian fatalities in all of their wars combined since World War II.
So this brings us to a really baffling mystery, right? How exactly did a grinding, bloody stalemate emerge from a clash of modern armies? Like, how did tech that you or I could literally just go buy online grind one of the world's largest militaries to an absolute halt?
Let's look at the evolution of the tank killer, moving from javelins to hobby drones.
To really get this, we have to trace the shift in how primary armor is actually destroyed. You probably already know that an FPV replaces a traditional handheld screen with these immersive goggles. Well, on the battlefield, that exact in-the-cockpit experience is what gives operators the high-speed, crazy agile precision they need. I'm talking about the ability to fly directly into the open hatch of a moving tank or zip right through a tiny bunker window.
Think back to the early days of the war. US-made Javelin missiles were the ultimate tank killers. But the sheer contrast in asymmetry here is wild. A Javelin is highly advanced, costs an absolute fortune, and requires a soldier to have a visual line of sight to lock onto a target, usually within, say, a 3-mile range. An FPV drone, on the other hand, that costs about $500, can strike beyond a 10-mile range, and can even be flown completely blind over hills or tree lines to hunt for targets.
A single $500 drone, piloted by a skilled operator, can disable or destroy a multi-million-dollar main battle tank. That quote right there perfectly hits the nail on the head. It's an unbeatable economic equation. You're trading a few $100s of expendable plastic and electronics to destroy multi-million-dollar, heavily armored assets. It is a completely asymmetric economic exchange that lets a smaller force wage a truly punishing war of attrition.
Which leads us into the asymmetric drone arms race, an innovation happening at the speed of war.
And that innovation really is happening at the literal speed of war. FPVs aren't just carrying one type of explosive anymore. Both sides have massively expanded the terrifying versatility of these platforms. They are strapping pretty much everything you can think of onto these agile little quadcopters. We're talking armor-piercing rocket-propelled grenade warheads for tanks, fragmentation rounds for infantry, thermobaric explosives that can collapse whole bunkers, incendiary dragon munitions raining down molten thermite, and even airdropped mines. The drone has basically become a universal delivery platform.
So how exactly are the two sides innovating? Well, Ukraine relies on a highly decentralized, super agile network. It's a bottom-up approach, heavily driven by startups, volunteers, and national platforms like Brave One. They're using real-time battlefield data, literally taking feedback from soldiers in the trenches today to iterate and tweak their drone designs in small workshops by tomorrow.
Russia, conversely, took a very top-down, centralized approach. Once they realized what a massive threat FPVs were, they mobilized huge state resources. They literally retooled civilian infrastructure, like actually converting bread factories, just to pump out FPV drones by the tens of thousands. It's this incredible, relentless push for overwhelming scale.
Next up, fiber optics and countermeasures. It's the ultimate electronic cat-and-mouse game.
This intense arms race has triggered a crazy fast cycle of electronic innovation. Step 1. Armies deploy electronic warfare, or EW, jammers to block the radio signals controlling the drones. Step 2. The drone makers adapt, writing these clever frequency-hopping algorithms so the drones quickly switch channels to dodge the jamming. And Step 3. The jammers get even better, so the drone makers eventually just say, forget it, and abandon radio frequencies entirely.
To counter heavy Ukrainian jamming, Russia deployed a major innovation, most notably in the Kursk region. Get this. They started flying drones that trail a physical, hair-thin fiber optic cable behind them. This cable unspools for up to 30 kilometers as the drone flies. And because it doesn't use radio waves at all, it's completely 100% immune to electronic jamming. It delivers a crystal-clear video feed right up to the exact point of impact.
Ukrainian Air Force spokesman Colonel Yuri Ignat summed up the nightmare of defending against this kind of saturation perfectly. He said, "A goalkeeper is standing in the goal, and suddenly 10 balls are flying at him at once. He cannot catch all of them. You can have the best air defenses in the entire world, but if 10 unjammable threats are coming at you simultaneously, there's just no way. The sheer volume completely overwhelms the defense."
So what happens when multi-million-dollar electronics fail against a literal spool of fiber optic cable? Well, we arrive at the bizarre paradox of this war. Troops are reverting back to totally rudimentary physical barriers. They're welding metal cope cages over their tanks, stringing up industrial fishing nets over trenches, and even carrying basic hunting shotguns to physically shoot drones out of the sky. We're also seeing the rise of interceptor drones explicitly built just to ram and destroy other drones.
Now, looking to the immediate future, we're already seeing the dawn of AI on the battlefield. For instance, Ukraine is fielding the Hornet drone, which runs about $6,000. But here's the kicker. It doesn't even need a pilot for the final strike. It uses autonomous AI algorithms to identify targets, sort out Russian decoys by analyzing things like thermal signatures and surface textures, and it does all of this processing on board. That means it doesn't need a vulnerable satellite link to hunt and destroy.
Now we come to the death of maneuver and what we call the transparent battlefield.
See, drones have created what analysts refer to as a transparent battlefield. Everything is being watched, all the time. Because of this constant overhead surveillance linked to instant precision strikes, it's virtually impossible to mass forces anymore. Any large concentration of tanks or troops preparing for an offensive, it's instantly spotted and annihilated from above before they even get a chance to move.
And because you can't mass forces, you simply can't push forward quickly. Look at the numbers. Around Konstantinica, Russian forces advanced at about 50 meters a day. At Pokrovsk, 70 meters a day. Compare that to the Battle of the Somme in World War I, literally one of the most notoriously slow, grinding trench battles in history, which saw an average advance of 80 meters a day. Let that sink in. Modern armies, fully equipped with 21st century tech, are actually moving slower than armies did over a century ago.
This reality has created a vast, terrifying space around the front lines known as the kill zone. It extends 20 to 40 kilometers deep, and it's so heavily saturated with FPV drones that moving in the open, whether you're in a truck, a tank, or just on foot, is a near-certain death sentence. Soldiers are literally forced to live underground and are reduced to pulling off these small infiltration missions on dirt bikes or ATVs just to survive the crossing.
The result of all this is just pure, brutal attrition. In fact, this drone-enforced stalemate drove the casualty ratio of Russian to Ukrainian forces up to an astonishing 8-to-1 in the first half of 2026. And drones, they are responsible for the vast majority of these losses.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. As cheap, commercial hobby technology completely neutralizes the doctrine of superpower militaries, what are we really looking at here? Are we witnessing a genuine military revolution that changes warfare forever, or is the FPV drone just a terrifying new tool to enforce a permanent, bloody stalemate? It's a huge question, and every military on Earth is rushing to answer it. Thanks for joining me, and keep asking the big questions.